Well, it's time once again to meet with the folks from the Apple organization here in our community. And Apple does a great deal of work in the area of early childhood development, education, and outreach. And that's going to be one of our primary focuses today. So joining us once again is Mary Haley, the project director with Apple. Hi, Mary. How are you doing?
I'm well, Don. How are you?
Good to have you. Very good. Thank you. And your team, could you introduce the folks that you brought with us today?
Yes, I would love to. This is Rosie Galvez. Rosie
Hi,
is
Rosie.
the family advocate with Apple. And one of the parents that we work with is Imelda Guerrero, who's joining us today.
Imelda, welcome. We're very pleased to have you with us today.
Likewise. Good morning.
Very good. Imelda, let's talk a little bit about your contact, some of the initial connections that you made with the Apple group. Before we get into how did you hear about them, tell us a little bit about yourself, children that you have in the community, kids going to school, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what some of the questions and concerns you may have had, which ultimately brought you to the Apple organization. How long have you lived in Addison?
I've been living in Addison for now 14 years.
Okay.
14 years.
Very
This
good.
November will be 15.
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
And children of grade school age?
Yes, I have a 10-year-old attending St. Philip's School, and I have an 8-year-old attending Wesley Elementary.
Very good. Okay. So what were some of the questions that you had that were of concern that you saw within your kids early on, or things that you wanted to get some questions answered and some support on? Can you tell us a bit about that?
The way I connected with Apple actually was through early learning education, which is in Ardmore.
Okay, the Early Learning Center, yes.
And
right.
so I went there I had taken both my kids through that program.
Okay.
And my child, who at the time was 3-year-old, she started as a 3-year-old, started attending, and that's how I connected with Mary here. And I seen her always be present on one of the booth tables, advertising early childhood services and what needs to be done nutrition-wise. And they used to bring book club members to be a part of how important it is for literature for early kids on learning-wise. So I connected through her that method. It was like hands-on. I take my child for an outside play, and they were there. And since then, I connected with her. Down the road, I met Rosie, and it's been great. Anytime I have questions or need a resource, they are excellent. There was a time in period where my husband needed dental work, and I was trying to seek someone who was within our budget, and they gave me an excellent resource. So that's how I know that they don't only help you guide you or children to academically, but they also provide other type of resources. I did not need any help with taking care of children, which I understand they also have another service called Metro, I think, Metropolitan or something.
The Head Start.
Yes, another Head Start program.
Head Start, yes.
I didn't need that per se, but they are excellent resources to our community.
Well, okay, so a couple things. First of all, you mentioned that you saw Apple. They had a presence
Yes.
not only at the Early Learning Center, but in other areas of
Yes.
the community. And that's really important because we do see the Apple organization and lots of other service agencies out in the community at various events. I know they are attendees at the Michael Lane Henry Hyde Resource Center Community
Yeah.
Celebration. Mary, you and your folks were out there, and a lot of others. So seeing a presence in the community sounds like that was very important to you,
Yes.
being very approachable. You also talked about a service that your husband was looking for, dental service, which is obviously something very important. And I think this goes back to something we talked about last time, and that is we're not talking about necessarily children here, we're talking about the whole of the family, which
Yep.
makes for a more cohesive life, obviously, too. So, Imelda, now where are your kids today? So Wesley School and St. Philip,
St.
is that
Philip,
correct?
yes.
Okay. When you made contact with Mary and her team at Apple, were there specific questions that you asked, do you remember, or were you just more curious about what they provide and kind of get a general overview of what was available?
It was more as to what they provide. In essence, with my first connection to them, as I mentioned earlier, it was just basically I took my daughter to have some fun at the playground, and they had a summer type of intervention
summer
service,
event.
and it was well welcomed because they had people. Some people were giving out books for the little kids so they could have approach to reading. They had them with hands-on activities, finger painting, things of that nature. And I find that anytime I look forward to the summers is that my kids have something to do. And they're always there. No matter where I go, they're there. And I'm like, whether it be at the library, they could be at Hangry Hyde, at a school setting, at sending them off to kindergarten stages, they're always there providing support and tools to help our children.
And as a parent, it sounds like that's something that you understand the importance of. You talked about summer activities.
Yes.
Summer can be, the real tough time, I think, for parents,
Yes.
certainly, and those in the educational community, because you'll lose a lot there. But it sounds like over the years, we've gotten smarter about how to approach learning throughout the entire year, including that summertime when the kids aren't necessarily in the school. So you've then learned from Apple. You've been able to extend that into your own personal life.
Yes.
It sounds like you and your husband have been able to do that, and now the kids stay pretty busy, it sounds like, but they're having fun at the same time?
They do. They're actually participants of Hangry Hyde Resource Center, and
Great
anytime
place.
they're there, they always send home the flyer, which Apple will be present, and all the subdivision organizations that are part of them that they help facilitate. So it's like you have a connection, and then you have all these, it's like an umbrella of all the services that are approachable through Apple.
Have you contacted any of those specifically, even with a question, or have you gotten to that point? Or
I contacted them about the dental service.
yes.
But then we were able to work that out very well. But here, Rosie was able to provide a follow-up saying, you asked this question, I have this resource if you're interested.
Good.
So they don't leave it as in, I'll get back to you. They are certain to get back to us.
Right. And we've come a long way, because I think a lot of times we just figure people will figure it out for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Just go your own way and good luck. And we know that isn't going to work all the time. And it sounds like Imelda has been able to not only find those resources, but continue on with them. And I would say, and I'm going to turn my attention now to Mary and Rosie, it sounds like the Guerreras are great advocates for their children and for their family. That she saw your presence in the community at events that the kids could be a part of,
Yep.
but also took it very seriously that this is something that she wants to stay in touch with. So can you share with us, either one of you, how you first came upon seeing Imelda, and what did you do? What was some of the information you were able to offer her for the kids, for her family, it sounds like?
I'll jump in, and then if you want to talk about from your perspective how you connected with
Sounds
Imelda.
good, man.
And bigger picture, we're looking to develop relationships with families. So we don't just want to be at an event and hand out a bunch of stuff. We're deliberately trying to develop relationships. Imelda and I started to recognize each other several years ago when we were at events, and we just got to know each other a little bit. So if we were talking about early intervention services or the literacy program, any of like the scope of what our partners cover, I would have been letting Imelda know about that, and then finding out if she needed us to give her any kind of support specifically. You want to talk a little bit about your connection?
Yes, and then with Imelda, it was the connection because we started seeing each other at school. My daughter used to go at ELC too, and then they got together at Wesley. So it was that connection too. That once I
Great.
started working for Apple, it was like, oh, it's like like if you need any resources or anything, it's like she mentioned that. We're there. We go to the schools, the library. We try, to go to the Jimenez, the stores, any
Yes.
the stores, local stores. So just like being present and let them know that we're here and we can provide resources. I know we focus from 0 to 5, but we also give resources to the whole community, and we wanna to let them know that if it's not just like Mary mentioned, it's not just to give the resources, it's just to help them out. Because if she has any questions, we're there, we're gonna be there to walk them through,
Well, Imelda mentioned follow-up.
yeah.
And so why do follow-up? You contacted her after you gave the initial information. Why keep in touch with a family like that?
I think it's really important because it's just like the connection that we have with the families, and like to show them that we care. It's like we really care. It's not just to to give out the info. It's like we really want to give you the whole the tools. We want to be there for you. And actually, it's like relationship, and it's like really cool to see, like, because it's beyond work. Like, 'cause like now that I see her anywhere, it's like, hi, Imelda, and it's like
She's a star now. I mean, wow, the whole town's gonna know Imelda.
The whole town is gonna be like Imelda. So it's really important just to show you that we care and that we're there for them.
Do you ever get follow-up questions? Would a family, let's just say any particular family, might call or access resources, you follow up with them, and then they have other issues they want to talk about? In other words, now something else has come up.
Yes, it's pretty common, and I try, and this is one of I try to like really emphasize and let them know it's like it's not. I know that we mentioned 0 to 5, but if anything else, we're here to give you the resources, because the resources are here. They just need to be able to grab them and use them. So
right.
Yeah.
Earlier on, Melda, you had mentioned seeing the folks from Apple at the Early Learning Center, which is located at Ardmore School. My question for our team from Apple is, what is so unique about that center, that school attached to Ardmore School, but what's unique about that facility that we didn't know of, maybe 10 years ago or more? I think that building's been there maybe close to 10 years, maybe not quite.
I think not quite.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
what's unique about that, though?
What's unique about it is the programs that are provided are Preschool for All and Preschool for All Extension, and then special education. So before that building existed and the Early Learning Center existed, that programming for children that age wasn't in the community. So there are trying to think, there are services for probably about 120 children that are provided that were new programs when the Early Learning Center opened, probably about, I'd say, 8 or 9 years ago, roughly.
All right.
Is that answering your question?
Well, yes, but also 120 kids, that's not the entire community now.
Oh, no.
So
no.
how does that get vetted then? How is that, what is the screening process that happens for
Great
students
question.
who go to that Early Learning Center?
So all school districts offer developmental screening testing for children. So that's just part of how schools are structured. And that's done at the Early Learning Center. So children are screened, and Preschool for All expansion and early special education is all administered by Illinois State Board of Education.
Okay, they call the shots on what's going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are qualifying parameters
Right.
that families have to meet. And then there is also the component of how a child does in the developmental screening process. So depending on the outcome of those factors, children will be eligible or not. But the important thing is the Early Learning Center staff is part of Apple, so they've got access to all of our other partners. So they could refer a family to, Imelda was mentioning before, Metropolitan Family Services that operates the Addison Children's Center, or to Carol's Learning Academy, or to one of the 15 childcare providers that are a part of Apple.
Okay.
So the whole idea is really succinctly, no wrong door. So if a child goes to one program or one service and it's not a fit for whatever reason, they're equipped then to help a family find other opportunities.
Are parents sometimes hesitant to reach out? Are
I
they
think so.
hesitant to say, I don't know where I'm going with this, I'm worried, is there going to be a cost involved? What kind of time is it going to take? I think this would be a great opportunity to maybe break down some of those perceived barriers that folks in the community may think exist.
Yeah, and I think one of the good things about going to the screenings at ELC, it's because also, like, when we're there, the parents, like, exactly, like, sometimes they don't know, like, who we are, like, what's Apple. And then we usually hand out, books or resources or, little things for their children, like, to color in. And then, like, oh, like, they're like, how much is this? It's like, no, we want you, this is free. we want you
We're
to
creatures of habit, I think, when it comes to that.
Because I know it's a normal thing, like, but I'm like, this is like, we want you to read to your child. We want you to like engage with your children, like the importance of learning, you know, like the importance of the brain development, and just give them the information. Because it's like, once we're there and we start talking more and explaining what we are, you know, what we do, they're like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Wow, then you've got a winner. You've turned somebody around then,
So,
right?
yeah, so it's really important just to give them the information, the right
But I
information.
think an intimidation is a natural thing to feel
Yeah,
at first,
for sure.
wouldn't you say?
And I think a lot of parents are in that they don't know what they don't know stage, and there's a lot of pressure in our society on parenting and parenting well and knowing what you're doing all the time. And the reality is we all figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
It is it's so much, you know, it's new, we're figuring stuff out, we're talking to friends and family, but to reach out for some assistance if you don't have a relationship, that can be tricky, especially if you have a concern about a child. That can be so frightening for people. And that's why Rosie and I want to be out and around in the community, just meeting people so that there's more of a comfort level and people don't feel like they have to go and connect with a stranger
Right.
to try to start making some connections for their family.
Yeah. Rosie?
No, I was just gonna mention, sometimes you see me at because like I know that I do this a lot of the times, because if I go to, an example is Michoacana, if I start talking to a parent that I see with a little kid and I'm like, don't feel afraid, it's just me that I'm gonna give the resources, because I'm like, hi.
How many hugs have you gotten from moms, probably, right?
They're like, oh, okay, but just to give the resources and give them the, you know, the right information. So it's like, don't be afraid, it's just me from Apple, Rosie Galvez, that I'm gonna be like talking to the community out there. Yeah.
The other thing that we do intentionally is have relationships with the family home child care providers, because collectively they're providing services to so many families. So if one of the home child care providers has a question or thinks that they might be able to assist a family, they'll then connect the family to Rosie. So part of what we'll do is work with people who already have relationships kind of naturally with families, so that a little bit of that barrier is broken down and it's a little bit easier for us to connect.
Yeah.
So these would be folks that, you call them home child care. So they have families who bring their children to a private residence, then,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it's sort of like a, it's not daycare, I don't want to call it quite that term, that might be too much of a catch-all, but you know, they operate a business that allows them to watch children during the day. And,
Absolutely.
And also to make sure that it's good quality time, it sounds like, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
There are 16 licensed
Is that
providers
right? Wow.
in
Okay.
Addison, and they have very stringent requirements with regard to the programming, the food that's provided, safety, et cetera. That's all very closely overseen and managed.
Right.
So yeah, those are the, and they're small business owners. So we very much want to be connecting with them, and Rosie does a great job with that as well. But part of our strategy is not just the two of us being out in the community, but also getting relationships with providers that are working directly with families so that that connection happens.
Is this a relatively new concept then, having contact with home child care providers? Is this something new, or has it always been there?
It's always kind of been there.
Mm-hmm.
It's an ongoing, like any kind of relationship though, Don, it's an ongoing process to invest time and care in so that those relationships stay strong.
Yeah, right. Well, let's turn back to Imelda. Now that we've heard kind of the backstory on all of that, what have you learned since reaching out to the Apple organization when it comes to advocating for your children, for your family, and what would you tell the viewers today who are watching this, maybe hearing this for the first time, and saying, gee, there's a group out there who I could actually reach out to. If I get myself over to the Early Learning Center, if I get myself to an event, or I make contact with them, what could you tell your fellow Addison resident about the great services that you receive from Apple?
First of all, having them, it's amazing, because not only are they approachable, they're very supportive, and it's like, for instance, I brought this little guide.
It's a beautiful, colorful
just to show
flyer
you
there.
What they put together. It's handed to families, and it's basically telling them what their services involve, And if you take a look inside, it's not just an empty
Hold that
folder.
up. I think that would be great for everybody to see.
It's something that is like
Yep.
put together with time and care, because it's like if someone's looking, you could find all these answers to questions that you might have, and people are not aware.
Very
So-
accurate, very current. You've got the
Yes.
211 system in here, which is
Exactly.
relatively new. Hamdard, we've heard from those folks
Yes.
before. I see Office of the Regional Superintendent information there,
Yes.
preschool, yep.
The preschool
Yep.
program, which is also geared, and they're
That's
always
great.
there present to hand out supplies to make sure that kids are able to write their name by the time they get to kindergarten. Things that you don't realize they put together. And I have to say it's an honor knowing them and seeing that when people have questions, like, well, you could put a face to the name. And they feel, I for sure feel that support given. Not that I need a daycare, because I'm fortunate enough to have been stayed with my children for the past now 7 years almost. And I feel that for me, I look for summers and I'm like, what can we do? I brought a nephew with me over the summer, and we were going from one thing to another. And they're like, he calls me Nina. It's like, Nina, you always keep your kids so busy. I'm like, it's like,
How do you do it?
I want to stay longer with you. And it's just like, you have to find ways to interact with your children, at the same time make them learn in a way that's fun, and having them around, and with the umbrella that they operate under, they make it enjoyable. They make it enjoyable. I find that education is key for our children. My husband and I both think that if we start them early as far as reading and having their hands busy versus TV and all these gadgets that they have now, that to me is a waste of time. Being outdoors and socializing and just living the day-to-day without being indoors is fundamental.
It must be also gratifying. I'll ask you, certainly as a parent, you ladies might want to chime in. Now we are in what we are now calling kind of the post-pandemic world. As a parent, you must be so grateful that kids are back in school. You mentioned socializing,
Yes.
socialization, and how important that is, and that was lost during the couple of years or so
Yes.
of the pandemic. So it must give you a great sense of relief now,
Yes.
knowing the kids are back in more of what we know to be kind of a normal setting then.
A normal setting back again. During the pandemic, our go-to escape was basically the wilderness. We will take them outside and just be exposed to nature, and they love nature. Whether it be fishing, running, you name it. It's like, where are we going this weekend? And we're like, let's take our little console of activities to do outdoors, because they couldn't be with others. For safety reasons,
Right.
but I'm glad that's over and we're back to socialization, and that kids are
We all are.
being back to what's normal for them.
Right, right. Melda, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. It's a very personal story, and you are definitely an advocate not only for your children and your family, but really for the resources that the Apple organization and all of their partner agencies are providing. So we're very grateful that you came in today to share your story. And for those people who are hesitant, I'm sure you are now chief spokesperson number one here to say, reach out to them. There is
Yes.
help available.
They're excellent. They're resourceful. They're very pleasant. They're supportive. I mean,
sure
there's
are.
nothing I could say negative other than thank you, ladies, and thank you, Don, for the
Yeah,
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
and
our pleasure.
To Mary and Rosie, this is a great success story on your behalf, I would assume. You must be very proud of the work that you were able to do to help Imelda, and now how she's taken this so personally, and as you have said many times before, to help advocate for her children and her family. It's critical.
It's a joy,
organization.
and it's very gratifying, not only to be doing this personally, but also to be working with Rosie and seeing all of the connections that she's making and the impact that she's having. It's very, very gratifying.
Great. Well, we're very grateful. Best way to reach out to Apple, either right now at the kind of the wind down of the school year or going into summer. How will folks be able to find out, and they can reach out like Imelda has done? What's the best way to connect?
The best way to connect is either to email one of us or to call one of us, or we can be found on the ASD4 website under the Families tab.
Okay.
So if people jump on asd4.org, look under Families, which is very logical, we're there, and we've got our contact information there as well.
Very good. Okay, so Addison School District 4 website is a great location to find connection with the Apple organization. We're coming to the wind down of the school year, so it's really critical that parents know services and just the day-to-day benefits and advocacy they can provide for their children during the summer months. And then before you know it, we're going to start talking about ramping up for the start of the new school year, and I know that's when you guys get really busy.
It gets very busy.
Poor Rosie, she's already exhausted just thinking about it. So.
It gets busy, and registration is going to kick off soon. I don't have the specific dates
That's
yet,
right.
as those are being nailed down.
Okay.
But that information will be all around the community and on the website in the coming few days or week or so.
Very good. All right. So thank you very much. I'm sorry, Rosie, go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention that they can also look and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. So on
There you go.
Addison Partners
So-
for Play, Learning,
Thank
and
you.
Education.
A social media presence always.
Yes.
Very good. So very much thanks to our guests today from the Apple organization. Mary Haley, of course, is always our project director. Rosie Galvez, the family advocate, and Imelda Guerrera. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very
Thank
much.
you.
And reach out to the Addison School District 4 website to find out more information on the Apple organization. Thank you all very much.
Thank
for being
you,
with us.
Don.
Thanks,
Thank
Don.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.